The intended use of this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests independently, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Updog Challenge Incorporated, its sponsors, or any other partnered organizations. Updog Challenge Incorporated does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of any opinions expressed. In no way should the information provided during the Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast be considered veterinary, medical, legal, or professional advice. At all times, the advice of your personal professional should supersede any information provided, derived, or inferred from listening to this podcast.
Ready, set, go.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot, an Updog podcast. I'm Andrea.
And I am Jack, and we have another one of those Andrea and Jack are unprepared podcasts for you today.
We're prepared. We're just winging it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is one of those podcasts that honestly I have the most fun with, where we just kind of chat about a topic, and we don't really have set things that we're trying to share, but we just kind of see where the conversation takes us. But we do have a very set topic today. What's our topic, Dre?
Our topic is a Jackism, actually, and it's something that Jack shares with students and players that he meets about finding your points. So we're going to talk a little bit today. So I guess sort of our guest is Jack, which I'll just say that puts me in charge. So now I'm in charge of this podcast today.
I see how that happened very quickly.
And you're going to tell us about finding your freestyle points. So Jack, when you say find your freestyle points, tell me what that means.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me say that it may be, I may be the one who maybe says it a lot, and maybe specifically about freestyle, but I really think Updog itself as an organization is about, and all the games are about finding your points. You know, when you think about any of our games, they are designed so that if you don't know how to, if you don't know how to do this particular strategy, or your body or dog's limitations can't allow you to do a certain strategy, you can earn points another way. An easy way to think about that is throw and go level 1, right? Like I can score big points by chucking it down the field and getting catches in the fast zone or the longest zone, or I can work on a fast handoff and my accuracy to throw down the middle and get those 6-pointer catches. Like there's multiple ways I can find my points, and that's just throw and go, right? But we're going to talk about freestyle today, because I think there's just a ton of examples of that whole idea of finding your points in freestyle, and it's what Dre and I like talking about the most. So
yeah, it does. We can always we may not even stay on topic of side topics of freestyle, but we definitely have a good time talking about freestyle. Okay, so find your points is individual for each player / team on how they can best get the points that best suit their skill set as a team. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. And I think that to start with, that notion is within the very spirit of freestyle and in the very spirit of the name. Like you think about the name, it's freestyle, not Dre style, Jack style, USDDN style, Updog style. It's freestyle, right? Now, of course, each organization has some things that they value, that they in some ways, some more specifically than others, tell you what those things are that they value in a freestyle routine. So you do kind of have to know, like, what are the judges in this organization looking for? Obviously, in Updog, we know that there's 3 judges in a criterion round: dog, human, and team. Even if it's a performance round, those judges are still looking for those 3 categories: dog, human, and team. And within those categories, in each one of those categories, there are 6 skills listed that may or may not be your strong point as a team. They may not be your strong point as a human. They may not be your dog's strong point. An easy one to think about is in the team category, there is a skill called use of field. Mm-hmm. And if I'll just make this the most extreme example. If I just broke my leg and I'm and I'm on crutches, my use of field is not going to be high as a human. My dog still might be able to use a lot of the field and help me out, but it's in the team category. So we're looking for both dog and human, making good use of the field. So and this comes up all the time during our freestyle judges course. They go, well, Jack, what if there's a person that can't really get around that well, but for them,
yeah,
for them, they did a really good job of using the field. And I'm like, well, okay, that's great. Good for them. Like, not to be mean, but good for them. Awesome. That's great. But if you didn't use the field as much as Dre did, because you have a broken leg or whatever, you're not going to get the points that Dre is going to get. And that sounds mean, sort of, right?
it does. But if you put it in the picture of like, imagine that you're in the same competition as the best freestyle player in the whole world, and that you guys go back to back. And let's say that you have the broken leg or you're in a wheelchair, right? And they're fully capable and having a great day. So both of you are doing your best performance as a person in a wheelchair with a broken leg and the top player in the world. You can't give the same field to use score, even if you're at your best and the person is at the best. And if I was the best in the world, I'd be pissed that that person would be getting the same score with a broken leg who doesn't move out of the sweet spot when I'm like running the entire field. So you got to think about it from the other perspective, that's just where, like you said, that's just not where you're going to be getting your points from. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get any points.
Exactly. Exactly.
You don't get free points just for it being a harder skill for you. Just like you don't get free points for athleticism and leaping if your dog doesn't leap. And you won't get, dog athleticism, speed, with agility points if your dog is loping around the field. Even though they're doing their best, there aren't points for just doing your best. There's points for what we actually see. And that's the only way that we can take something subjective like freestyle and try to get it in some semblance of a structured point system. It has to consider, I think, the difficulty of the move. And I always compare it to gymnastics because everybody's so fine with, like, in the Olympics, you hold up they hold up the score bar, whatever, and it's the score changes based on the difficulty of that person's routine. So they'll be like, well, the maximum difficulty is this. This is the maximum point they can get if they do a perfect performance, and then you take off deductions. It's that same sort of thing in disc dog, but we don't get handed a freestyle routine at the beginning. So we have to like observe everything and analyze it in that 2 minutes that we're doing it. So there's this human error version of it too. And then there's the whole subjective version of us having to assess how difficult something is and how many points we could assess based on the difficulty, and then how difficult they do the move on top of that. Like how well they do the move on top of whatever the difficulty is.
Well, and for those of you that don't know, maybe you've never judged Updog Freestyle, or you haven't taken the Updog judging course, and so no one at your local club maybe has shared this with you. But there is a judge's cheat sheet that talks about what is the score between 0 and like 1.5. What does that mean? And it's got some statements about that score. What does the score between 1.5 and 2.75 look like? And there's statements about those scores. So like Dre said, we're trying to take something that could be super crazy subjective and make it a little bit more narrowed so that our judges' scores, they're not going to be the same. Like if Dre scored you on team category and I scored you on team category this exact day on the same exact routine, we would likely not come up with the exact same score. But Dre's score shouldn't be like 5 points higher than my score. Like, we should be relatively close if we utilized they call it a rubric. If we utilize that rubric or that cheat sheet for the judges. But that's on the judges' side, right? When they're watching something, when they are to your point, Dre, like the best player in the world and me with a broken leg. If we both get the same use of field score because the judges felt like we both gave it our all, they're judging something else. They're judging our effort. They're not judging our performance on the field, what we've demonstrated, the skills that we've been able to demonstrate. Both are important, but only one of them is being scored in Updog Freestyle, and that's what we put out onto the field, what is demonstrated. So, like, when it comes to the player side of things, though, we have to know, like, I need to know like what do I think I'm pretty good at? What do I get some good comments from my friends? What have I gotten some decent scores on from judges in the past? And where do I feel like, I could get better? Where can I find my points? And so like sometimes I think people might look at their score sheet, just as in general, look at their score sheet and find the lowest score and go, "Oh my gosh, I really have to do better on that thing. That's my lowest score."
Yeah.
And maybe it's something you forgot about, like, or maybe it's something you never worked on. Like, for instance, maybe it was disc management, and you need to maybe think about how you're collecting your discs and be a little bit more methodical about it and this
Right.
type of stuff. But on the flip side, and that is something, disc management, maybe that's something you can improve and get some more points. Um, but maybe your lowest score is collection and control on the dog side, right? And maybe your dog is remix and he is never leaving the ground for any catch unless it's a vault or a flip. Like he's just not. So the only thing that I can do, I know that I'm not going to get a huge dog score for him on that aspect. But you know what I do know about Remix is he freaking catches anything.
Yeah.
And there is a catch category on the dog side, on the skill side, that where if I can show that he can catch discs thrown with clockwise motion, counterclockwise, butterflies, slanty things, vertical things, horizontal, then he can get a good catch score. That's an area where I can find my points. So even though collection and control might be his lowest score, and I might think to myself, okay, I got to work on his collection and control, I also kind of have to ask myself, like, is
Is
it
it worth putting your energy there?
exactly?
This brings up a topic that I hear all the time. And these things happen in groups. I don't know why, but like last summer it was a whole different conversation, and this summer it's a whole new conversation. It's that conversation about like I was at a seminar this past weekend and somebody was talking about doing zigzags. And like I want to improve this throw or this flow, and I'm having trouble having success with my zigzags. So zigzags, for anybody that doesn't know, it's directional movement. It's a scored category in USDDN freestyle, where the specific criteria of a zigzag is there needs to be 4 catches in a working flank away from the handler. So the dog has to be some ways, maybe 10 yards, 15 yards away from the handler, and go back and forth away from the handler, back and forth on the same line 4 times for 4 catches. So catch, 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 catch in a zigzag motion. Okay, that's what a zigzag is. And that's one example of directional movement, but it is the most common example of directional movement. So we were talking about that, and this person was saying that there's trouble connecting on directional movement, and I said, "Do you know that you only have to do 4 of those if you're playing USDDN? And even if you're playing USDDN, you don't have to do 4 of those. But if you wanted to have directional movement, a quote unquote check for the box of directional movement in your USDDN format, you only got to worry about that when you're playing USDDN format." So while we structure our routines, maybe around USDDN format, because it's a great way to build a first freestyle routine, or maybe around Updog format, because it makes it clear how to structure a routine. But you don't have to do vaults if your dog doesn't vault well. You don't have to do overs if your dog doesn't collect and leap well, and that's
Yeah.
not going to showcase the dog well.
But Dre, that person that I saw win last week, they
They
have
have them,
overs,
but I
right?
promise you it won't help you win if your dog doesn't over well.
Well, that's a fair point.
This is back to the topic of finding your points. You only have 2 minutes. So, as a new freestyle team, I get it. You're trying to fill 2 minutes. So, you're going to put overs and vaults and dog catches and every single trick in there that you can, every single throw that you can. Perfect. I'm not talking to you specifically for this part, because you finding your points is getting out there in a freestyle routine and trying to remember the 2 minutes and make good throws. That's all I'm worried about for you guys. Just go out, have fun, get used to being on the field, work on hitting your throws and remembering your routine, and then make it better the next year, right? And start leveling it up. For the people that are already leveling up stuff and you're trying to find your points, if somebody wins because their dog has bad to the bone, big flying overs, and your dog doesn't jump that way, don't waste your time spending 6 months putting in something that's going to fill however much time in your routine when you can be using that time to showcase that a dog that usually doesn't collect well for overs is going to flip better, vault better, and have better collection for their catching. Like you're speaking, that's a remix style dog, right? And not every
Right.
dog fits so much in one category, but remix really fits in that category. So for him, he's not going to jump for his out throws, but he going to catch them,
Right.
right? And his flips are going to be great and his vaults are going to be great. But you try to over that dog, he's probably going to kick you with his back feet.
Right.
Legs. And that's so you're not going to spend a lot of time working on overs with remix. You're going to work on your vaults, your flips, variations of those, right? And you're going to show his agility on the field that he can cut back and forth and that he has excellent catching. We're not going to even notice that you don't have overs.
Yeah, that's the thing is like you just said it. Judges are not going to notice that because they're going to be you are allowing them or forcing them. I don't know which way to say it.
Fencing, like whatever, you're bringing him a dinner plate full
Right.
of, you have a whole buffet, and the buffet includes overs, which your dog's not great at. When you bring them a plate to the judges, just leave the overs on the table. They don't need you when you're at Thanksgiving dinner, you don't need to eat that nasty jello stuff with the chunks in it. What do they call fruitcake? Nobody needs to eat fruitcake.
Okay. Well, this took an odd turn. I don't know why fruitcake
It's like
is
a
getting the
Christmas
bashing here,
because you know
but
every Christmas or Thanksgiving somebody brings a fruitcake, and I don't even know anybody who likes to eat fruitcake. You don't have to bring the fruitcake to
for me, it's that marshmallowy jello stuff.
That's
That
actually what I was thinking about. What is that called?
is it
It's got a
ambrosia?
weird name.
I don't know, but yeah,
A weird
I know,
name. But yeah,
I
that
know what
stuff
you're
we don't
talking
need that
about.
either. Marshmallow, fluffy jello. We don't need it. Don't bring that to the judges. If it's not a strength, just don't even bring it because you only have 2 minutes. So you want to
So,
really fill that 2 minutes with the stuff that you're good at.
and one of the things that, again, you may not know if you haven't gone through the judges training. And by the way, anybody listening to this who hasn't gone through the freestyle judges training, it is a super cheap course because we want you to take it because we want to get as many judges out there as possible. Um, however, it's not only helpful just for freestyle judges. Like if you're a player that wants to understand freestyle better, wants to understand what the judges in Updog are looking for, it is a great course to take. So anyway, that said, uh, everybody listening to this that's played Updog freestyle has probably picked up at some point, their score sheets. And those score sheets, there's one for dog, human, and team. It's a judge's worksheet that you're allowed to take at the end of the event. And underneath each skill, it has some bullets and some listing of things underneath that particular skill. It's important for you guys to know that that is not an exhaustive list of things you must do. Like it's not a list of do this, do this, do this. Oh, you didn't do that one, so I can't give you full points. They are examples of how a dog, a human, or a team might showcase that skill. And we only have so much space to give the judges a heads up like, hey, these are the things that we're talking about, but it's not an exhaustive list. So like, for instance, going back to your example of zigzags, Dre, like in Updog, we'd be looking at team connectedness there. We'd be looking at shapes, like in the team category. If I don't do a zigzag, but I'm doing lots of other different shapes, some linear, some curved, then I'm going to get my points, even though I didn't do a zigzag. Even though there might be a zigzag listed on that bullet point, I didn't do one. It's okay. It's not a list of things you have to do. It's a example of how a dog, a team, or a human might showcase those skills.
Yeah, so maybe shift perspective from like these are items I have to check off the list to these are things that we can use, components that we could use to build a freestyle routine. So like when you're working on how do I make my freestyle routine, you could even write those generic things on little cards and shuffle those up and have them come out in a certain order to help build your freestyle routine. For example, if you're looking for like ideas of stuff. Like we can they're examples, but they're not things that you have to do if it's not a strength for you and your team, or you don't like it, or you don't want the impact of it, or your dog is older or a larger dog, which I think goes into a whole nother topic.
Right.
We're
That
not gonna
usually comes up too, like when we talk about the dog category. Well, what about like if a small dog is doing it? And
we're a German Shepherd. Like they don't, you're not going to want to be, repeatedly vaulting your German Shepherd. You're not going to want to be doing running, flying overs with your German Shepherd. Dog catches, the dog is probably not going to be running. And there was one handler this weekend that caught a running German Shepherd. It was terrifying, and she didn't fall over. It was amazing. But like, you're gonna have a different set of moves with a small dog and a large dog. And so
Right.
if we're assuming everybody has to do the same moves, like you're gonna do far less vaulting with a large dog and probably more vaulting with a little dog. And then the middle-sized dogs are kind of in the middle because the little dogs, it's hard to really showcase them on the ground, especially with out throws because it takes them longer to get there. They get tired so fast. So if you're doing these big out throws for little dogs as most of their routine instead of doing inside work, they're going to be gassed just from running around the field because their legs are like a third of the size of everybody else's legs. So your field use might be less because your dog is smaller, but you might have a higher tricks and showmanship score because you
Right.
have more inside work with your dog, like maybe better collected leaping score for your dog or athleticism type of thing, or all those sort of categories could be enhanced because the judge has so much opportunity to see inside work with a small dog. Same thing for large dogs. You're not going to want to have a bunch of out throws for the German Shepherds or the Malinois. I think are a little, they're more agile. They can get up to speed a little faster. But again, as a 65 to 85 pound dog is what we're really seeing for a lot of Malinois. You don't want a bunch of repeated big vaults and running overs. That has a lot more impact on larger bodies. So you'll be using less of those things. What else are you going to put in that spot that are we going to showcase your dog? So I think that's a whole separate part of the conversation of finding your points. If you have a large dog or a small dog, you may be using more pet tricks because you're not using as many out throws.
Right. And if you, to the point of the small dog too, like if you tire your dog out, just like you said, thinking about the dog skills on up dog, the dog's drive is probably going to falter because they're
Yep,
running
for
out of
sure.
breath.
Yeah.
They're in the dog skills, there's a category called flash, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of subjective, but if your dog's all tired in mid round, not having the same drive or energy, their flash score is probably going to be lower. So like there's always a trade-off. There's like this trade-off, and you have to kind of like be strategic and go, all right, if I'm gonna lose points here by not doing this, where else on this sheet can I gain my points? Where else can I find my points, right? And I can, whether it's a small dog, whether it's a large dog, whether it's you with a broken leg, you can find your points. And you have to kind of take a look at those sheets and analyze them a little bit and just kind of think about it. Um, there's one, there's one category that actually gives you the choice of you can do this or you can do this to get these skills, and it's in the human category, and it's called athleticism and
Yeah.
showmanship.
Yeah.
So like it says right there, like, hey, like we realized when we put this together that on the human side, not everybody's strong suit is going to be
Okay.
being athletic. Um, and not everybody's strong suit is going to be being a showman or a show person. Like, I am not going to get points. Like, I'm not going to get my points by going, ta-da, look at
Oh,
me.
come on, Jack. I knew you were gonna say that, and all I have to say to that, hold on, I need a hat. All I have to say to that is that. You
Well,
can't say you're not a showman.
that's,
But that's
I,
that right there is you finding your points because you're like a silent showman in there. Like you'll be like covert about it.
well,
But
that's
a
true.
lot of showmanship in your freestyle routine, it's just covert showmanship instead of overt showmanship. You have like athletic humor and you have stuff. So for you, covert showmanship does contribute. Whenever I see you at PIDC, I'm always looking for some switch in your music or some little sassy, funny thing. The roller in between your legs was a big surprise that we saw a couple years ago. So that's a unique element. Most people that are doing showmanship stuff are doing loud stuff, but maybe if there's somebody that doesn't want to be loud, but you still want to be surprising, P Vibe would call it athletic humor. So you use a lot of athletic humor, and that is both athleticism and showmanship. So it doesn't have to be in the same pile as Gary Duke out there going woo woo with Bear. That's overt showmanship,
Right.
right? You do
True.
Kirby is a great overt showman. That's another person that's great at generating that showmanship outwardly, right? Let me think about who's another covert showman. Let me
I
think
don't
about
know.
that.
This is a new term for me.
I know.
Covert showmanship.
It's
Undercover.
interesting. It's interesting because James Tang maybe.
Yeah.
Like he has things hidden in there that are athletic humor that are like they make the difference in the routine. People look forward to those elements and a lot of athleticism, right? So
Well,
like
and
there
that,
you can have both of them without them looking a certain way. You could have athleticism without, doing breakdancing moves and somersaults and stuff like that. You could still
right.
cover a lot of space. Like you're not rolling around on the ground, but you're covering a lot of space and you're throwing double disc stuff and you're getting up and down. That's all athleticism also. Doing fishes, being there for the dog in time.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing from the judge's perspective that they need to be thinking outside of the box.
Yep.
It's always, as a rule, right? Not just freestyle. It's the judges. The judges, first of all, are the players, the team's ally, right? And they are there to give the human points that they are earning. So
Yep.
I'm, as a freestyle judge and updog, I'm always looking for, hey, was that a way they could have?
Yeah.
That was athleticism right there,
Yeah.
and they should be giving you points for that, even though it may not have been the athleticism that they had in their head that they were looking for. You presented some other form of athleticism, or like in this case, covert showmanship or whatever. Um,
That's a new term.
but they should see that. Now I got to come up with some sort of icon for that covert showmanship. Like I'm
You're
like a
gonna be a
person,
ninja.
yeah, or something like
Or it's,
that.
it's very James Bond. It's
Yeah.
the same thing, James Bond. It's like cool guys don't watch explosions. There's some people that are rocking off with the explosion. There's some guys that are just walking away and everything's blowing up behind. You're the walking away guy,
Well, I
where
hope
you're
I hope
eh,
things aren't blowing up, but anyways, like it is the judge's responsibility to identify these things, and um, throughout, I think throughout, I'll speak only for myself because I was going to make a generalization, but I don't know what everybody's thinking. I don't know what you're thinking, but throughout my history with a bunch of different dogs, my points came from different places.
yep,
Right when I had
spice. Just tally versus spice right there is
right
completely different.
right when I had Tally, she had hip dysplasia. She never vaulted in her routine. She wasn't a big leaper. She was not going to get me the wow factor from the dog
Dog.
side.
Dog was
She
always
was
your lowest category. Human was always your highest category. Yeah.
right, and I just had to realize that, like, okay, if my points are going to come from, and I don't mean to be mean to Tally, but my points were going to come from me. Like if something was going to look unique or interesting or flashy, it was going to come from me. So I knew I had to bring the points from the human side. When I first got Spice,
It was
I
all
kept
dog.
I was in that mode and I kept thinking I got to do this stuff. No, I just
Just gotta
needed
get
to
the
throw
dog
a
fast.
backhand, a
Yeah.
floaty backhand right in front of her, and then she would jump up, look at the judges, hang in
And
the
go,
air for 3 seconds,
oh, oh.
and all the judges would be like, "That was amazing," and I
And
didn't
so
have to
Tech,
do
you just need to
anything.
stay out of the way and give her something
Right?
she can catch. So like two totally different approaches. And then you got Ferris, which is even more of an inside dog because Spice really didn't like a lot of inside work.
Yeah, no,
Ferris is a really
unless it
nice
was a vault.
balance. Yeah, so Ferris likes everything. So, that was a nice balanced routine where you don't have to fight so much for the inside stuff. And you see you have a lot of really unique creative combos inside moves because the dog would do both, right? And so when you finally got the dog that could do everything, the championships came really easy for you. And with Spice, you struggled with not having enough inside stuff. And with Tally, you struggled with not having enough dog, right? So it's like we just got to find whatever combination we have. Every team that we play has a different combinations of strengths and weaknesses, and just to
Exactly.
not work with the same bucket.
And
Like,
going back to those examples that you gave earlier, just because we were talking about my dogs and we brought up Ferris, um, no overs,
yeah,
no zigzags, um, only two or three vaults, never more than that in his routine, and he's been very successful. So like you don't have to do all these
everything.
different things. You can if those are your strengths, or your dog's strengths, but you just have to think, oh, all right, what can me and my dog do really well?
Yeah, and I didn't even notice that you had no overs with Ferris your entire career. I didn't even notice till you just said it right now. Never even. It was not a missing, is my point. Like I'm not missing it.
Right. Yeah, and
I've
that's
seen
the thing.
everything that we're watching, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything by watching it. Now, if you didn't have like any flips, I might notice that's missing. But even then, like if the flips aren't good and the
Right.
dog will do a fakie or a reverse vault, it still shows the same skill without the dog having to jump up. So anyway, it's just an interesting conversation about kind of separating our brains from what we think needs to be contained in freestyle and then kind of rinsing and repeating that same development process between different dog combos is real it's just limiting and it gets I would suspect it gets boring to like always be making freestyle for the same dog with different dogs. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Or like, yeah, all my freestyle routines have to have this or have to have that. And
Yeah.
I just want to go back to flips real quick because you said something that this came up in some training stuff I was doing recently where um, the dog had a really great flip to one side.
Mhm.
And part of it was I think that was the dog's strong side, but also it was the human's best side throwing.
Yeah.
And there was this conversation about, well, wouldn't a judge realize that they're only flipping on that one side and, say, well, they didn't showcase that they could flip on both sides?
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe, but I kind of doubt it. Like if you what they would notice though is if you flipped on the one side and the dog does an amazing flip and then you flipped on the other side and like it was totally lame,
Yeah.
like they would notice that.
Yeah.
And so, like, my thought was you go with your strength.
Yep.
You don't want to do like 9 flips on that side because then a judge might be like, why are they always flipping on that side? But if you only did 3 or 4 flips throughout your routine and you mixed in other stuff that I didn't ever, as a judge, wonder, like, how come they never flipped on the left side or whatever? You're showcasing your strengths, you're hiding your weaknesses.
Yep.
And so hiding your weaknesses is another part where I thought maybe we could discuss a little bit about because finding your points always sounds like I'm doing something, but sometimes
Not
not
doing
doing things is the way to get your points, right? And that was kind of an example of that. But like, I don't know if we can think of other examples on not doing things to find your point.
overs that don't have collection, a fakie where the dog just puts one paw on you. Um, like maybe a dog catch where the dog doesn't jump and they just kind of scale up your body. Like
So,
or a dog on a dog catch that obviously doesn't want to be caught. That's one of my pet peeves. Like the
right.
dog flailing around and then running away from the handler. And what
But
I'll
I
say
did a dog catch.
And what I'll say to that is there are ways to do dog catches without restraint. So you could do a stall catch and the dog will not be restrained. If you absolutely insist on having a dog catch, I recommend doing a dog catch without restraint. And you'll never reliably, in my opinion, I'm saying a never statement, which is completely inauthentic, but whatever, I'll say it anyway. You'll never consistently get your dog to do a dog catch if they don't like being caught. You won't be able to trick them into it on a
All the
consistent.
time, right? Yeah.
So
You may
you
get
might
away with it every once in a while.
yeah. But what you're impacting is your relationship and your trust with your dog. So I don't do if my dog doesn't like to be caught and I work through the process of getting the dog to like and tolerate being caught, which I've been able to do for all my dogs so far. I've been able to get them to at least tolerate dog catches and not wiggle around and thrash around, right? But if I had a dog that wasn't able to do that, I just wouldn't do dog catches with them, or I would do one without stalls. So if your dog doesn't like restraint, work on not liking restraint instead of work on tolerating dog catch because I think that's one of the big ones that everybody wants a dog catch, but like just holding on to them while they smash you in the face with their skull is not the funnest way to get there.
So I heard a pattern in what you were saying. Like you gave some like we honed in on dog catches, but before that you were kind of like giving a bunch of different examples. And essentially what I think I heard was like if you've got a skill maybe you're working on, you haven't perfected it yet, or you've got a skill that you have been working on for a long time, but it's just still a little bit rough or sloppy, you might get more points by not doing that in your routine than putting it in. And I think that's a mindset that sometimes I know a lot of newer players feel like, well, I have to include this or I have to include that. Well, I've got this. I've been working on it. I want to get some points by doing it, but you're only going to get points if
Yeah.
it's successfully done well.
And you can do it as a take for right now in your routine so that you get the pattern under stress. Like you don't have to throw it. But like for us, I would rather see a take than a poorly executed move where the throw wasn't safe or where the dog wasn't able to do it. I would much rather see a training stage of it being shown. Now, of course, it's not a thrown disc, so you're not going to get like full credit for that move, but we can see the layer of training that you're doing, and you will get credit for that. You will get credit for the teamwork that it takes to be able to
Right.
do that, and
And the
the handling
flow.
skill that it takes to be able to put that and line the dog up in the right spot and pause and communicate with your dog. Like you get scored for all that, even if you're not getting the full points for a finished freestyle move, you know? But yeah, to what Jack was saying, it's better to just not what percentage for you, and because I think this is how we kind of talk about it, at what percentage of success would a move have to be before you put it in your freestyle routine?
I mean, most it's a flexible thing because if it's a big
Right.
move, if
Yes.
it's a highly difficult move, then my percentage is going to be lower, right? Like I definitely have moves that like 75% of the time I'm catching. But if it's lower than 75% in practice, I'm not going to put it in. And I'm only going to have a couple of those that are at 75%, like two or three
Like
maybe.
butterfly moves, high
Right.
risk moves
High risk,
that
high
are more the
reward.
top. Yeah.
Because it's just not worth it. Like if it's just, let me go back. It's just not worth it if you're worried about your score. Because
Yeah.
I will say there's times
Worth
throughout
it for the fun factor.
well, there's times throughout a dog's career though that I don't care about the score. Like if I'm just working on things and I'm working on a new routine or like a new sequence rather, and I don't care what score I get, it's not the world finals right now or whatever, or this is a young dog, then I might put it in just like you said earlier so that I can work through it in a competition setting and that'll help me, it'll help my dog. But if I do care about my score, then it better be at least at 75% in practice, and that's only two or three. Everything else should be like 90%.
Yep,
Like,
I'm with you on the same numbers. I think that if I'm putting something in at 75%, it's a butterfly type move or something that you just can't guarantee that you're going to catch every time just because of the
right.
risk of the actual move. On double disc, triple disc, brushes, max, any off of a vault, something like that. A brush, mac, butterfly, something off of a vault type of move or a flying move. I think, static butterflies might be, at 75 or 80%, but everything else really needs to be at like 90% before we put it in. Now those are people that are competing regularly with a 2-minute routine. Now, if you're a new player and you're just building your routine, you're going to have a bunch of vaults in there and stuff in there that is at 50% or 40% or 60% because you got to put something in there in order to fill out the 2 minutes, right? And that's where you can start to use takes in order to get success. I think the difference in the conversation is that Jack and I are talking about that every single drop we have matters. Every single mistake we make matters. And I'm not going to waste one drop on something silly because that one
Right.
drop makes the difference whether you win or you don't win. Like if I have a 2 drop routine, I have a chance to win. If I have a 3 or 4 drop routine, going to be
Yeah,
you'll
not
get
gonna happen.
podiums
You
and
better
not
get a
like
30 in DA.
yeah. So you like, but that's really what it is. It's like, you have a window of 0 to 2 drops to be in that window to line up to win a world championship type event. So for us, every single move success, the percentage of it matters. The placement of every single out throw matters. Every single move matters. And a lot of that's patterned over time. So it becomes kind of automatic. If you're working on your freestyle routine with a lot of new moves, you don't have to be so worried about the percentage of every move because you're not worrying about every single drop right now winning world championship. Does that make sense?
It does. And I want to, yeah, and I realize that not everybody listening to this podcast is probably in the same spot as
Yeah,
a freestyle
concern for
player
every
as
single.
everybody else. We're all in different spots, right? And we get in different spots also when we get new dogs, when we have different things happen in our life to our bodies, our physical limitations, right? There's lots of ebbs and flows in terms of what we can do in our freestyle routines. A story I don't think I've told on the podcast before, but if I have, who cares? I'm telling it again because it's a good story. Um, and it was a huge learning experience for me. So I was early in my freestyle career. It was with Tally, And so Tally was she was essentially my first freestyle dog that I started with. I started with a dog named Ruckus, but he was already like 6 or 7 years old when I started with him. So we didn't really get to do too much before we had to retire. So anyway, I'm working with Tally, and somehow I don't remember how this all got organized, but that doesn't matter for the story. But Melissa Heater, who was the first ever female world champion, I believe, in freestyle, and she's the one that started the USDDN organization. And I thought very highly of her, and she was coming to Tampa, and Kat had gotten me a private session with her, like to, learn from her and have her, give me some feedback on what I was doing with Tally. So part of me, young Jack, was all about. I had like I thought I had some cool moves that I wanted to showcase when Melissa came, because I wanted her to like my stuff. I was hoping for some, like, good comments about maybe some of my freestyle things. And so bottom line, I did my freestyle routine, and I was doing a lot of things that were focused on the trick and not focused on us as a team. And Tally was not the most driven dog. Like, she was okay. She had drive, but she wasn't the most driven dog. And so she would detract from me when
Go visit fence.
when my communication wasn't clear. She would detract from me when we had too many disconnects on a disc. Like, if she would drop a couple in a row, she'd realize I'm not doing what I'm supposed to here, and she would start to lose the energy. Anyway, like, I'm out there, hey, Melissa Heater, check out this skip toss. Hey, Melissa Heater, check out this butterfly little leg vault thing I've got going. Or I was actually an over. And check out this thing, right? And basically, after I got done with my routine, because she told me, she's like, just show me what you got, and then we'll talk about it. And it was so dejecting.
I know what she's gonna say. Go ahead.
She was like, all right, all of that trick stuff that you're doing, you need to get rid of all of that. And I'm like, what? It crushed me to the core, where I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, and I didn't say that, but just in my head I'm thinking it. I'm like, what is she thinking? I no longer like Melissa Heater. No, I didn't think that. But she's like, she just told me, she said, Jack, this is about being successful with your dog. And the way that you are successful with Tally is that you're connected on the field. Tally's communicating with you, you're communicating with her. You're throwing discs to her that she can catch so that she knows she's successful. Yep. And your flow is going to be good. Your disc management's going to be good. Finding your points, right? She didn't say it that way, but that's what she was talking about. And she's like, all this other stuff can come later. She's like, but right now, all of this extra stuff is making you guys disconnect. It's getting your routine's getting discombobulated, and you just need to get rid of all of it. She said, I want every single throw to be a backhand, and I want you to make sure your dog's ready for that backhand before you throw it. And I was just like, what?
This is not why I came to this.
Exactly. Where are the trick throws and the vaults and the cool things that you're supposed to show me? So, like, and anyway, interestingly enough, so she was down for the weekend for some local or something. And then we were up in Georgia at an event she was running, a bigger event. And she knew that I was coming to that event. What's that?
That's the big one at the park up in Atlanta that we used to go to.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was at Cartersville.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of it, but that was a super fun event. Go ahead.
There was an event in Georgia that weekend that Melissa Heater was going to be the head judge at. And so, like, she was telling me, of course, all I want to see is backhands. All I want to see is you connecting with your dog, focus on catches, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, like, during practice, right? But not, like, at the event. And she's like, no, at an event. And I'm like, even at the event next week, like, that's a big event. And she's like, especially at that event. Yeah. And she's like, if I see you doing all that other stuff, I'm going to be disappointed. And I was like, I can't disappoint
You're
Melissa
disappointed,
Heater.
Melissa Heater.
And so I go out there. It's mine and Tally's routine. I did nothing but backhands. I connected with her. I could feel it. It was the smoothest routine that I had ever had because I wasn't constantly disconnecting because of misses. She was right there with me because of my communication. The only thing I did do was on the second round, my last throw, I did an overhand wrist skip flip, like a,
Yeah, yeah.
like that, and Tally did catch it because it was her last throw and she knew where she was going. But everything else, I did exactly what Melissa Heater said, and it was the highest scores that I had gotten ever. And it wasn't because of Melissa. Like there were other judges there, so it wasn't like Melissa is like, "Oh, you did what I said. Here, let me give you a high score." But in the whole idea of finding your points, I didn't realize that like when I dropped off this end, when my tricks and my throw diversity and difficulty went down, I didn't get points there, but I got points in my catch. I got points in dismanagement. I got points in flow. I got points for our team movement and team connectedness, and all of those things went up. So, and they went up more than this side went down because I got the highest scores I had ever gotten. And that experience, that lesson that Melissa taught me has stuck with me forever. And like that's what I always kind of go back to is like, I want to be successful out there with my dog. I want to be connected with my dog. All the other stuff can get built on slowly. I can build that in. I can add it in. I add these two things this season. I add three more things next season.
Yeah. How I hear that is like it's an investment. One of them is like the payoff, and one of them and the other is the investment. And then the next thought that immediately comes to me is there's nowhere to get to in this sport. Like when you get to the very top and you're the best in the world and you're winning the world championships, it's not any different. You're like still waking up with the same dog that still farts at night, or you're still, next to the same
Yeah,
dog.
but they fart glitter now, is what I
Three
heard.
bumps, whatever. Like the point is there's nowhere to get to. Like and it took two generations of dogs for me to really get it. And now in my third generation, it's reinforced again that like this is the whole fun part. Like I spent it's certainly my first generation of dogs the whole time trying to get somewhere and then didn't get there. The second generation of dogs, I got there and I'm like, woo, I finally got there. And it's exactly the same as all the other places. Like there's nowhere to get. And in the process of trying to get somewhere, you lose all the joy that got you there. And I think that people don't do the investment parts because they're in a getting to somewhere place versus like that is the whole point. The training that we're doing, the lesson that you're doing, that you get scratched when you're working leg vaults, and then the next time you get a leg vault, that's the whole point. It's the training that's the journey. Like when you get there and you have an 8 or 9 year old dog at the end and everything's perfect, in a year or two, they're going to be retired. You're going to have to start all over with another dog. Like there's nowhere to get to.
Is that
And
my
then
pep talk? Is this my pep talk?
yes, because you miss the whole journey, right? Like you finally get there 8 to 9 years later and you're like, yeah, I have all this stuff, and then it's gone. Like that whole journey of trying to get to that point of everything being perfect, you don't appreciate it because you're still trying to get somewhere else. So
This is very much like the 5 stages of hunting that we talked about with Diane. Like that's
yeah.
a great episode if you guys haven't listened to that one because it's kind of exactly what Dre's talking about, these different stages. And you don't realize that these stages are all there until you go through them. And then you realize you're right back now at stage 1 or 2 or whatever.
And this stage 1 and 2 has been profoundly different for me than the first two generations of dogs that I had. I enjoy it much more. I'm much more patient. I'm not playing them nearly as much. And maybe I'm not getting results as fast as I was either, but I'm enjoying the process where before I felt stressed that they have to do something by a certain time. So like now I have no it's a fun adventure for me to figure out how to get foundation on my dog and not do vaults or big impact moves until they're over 18 months old. Like that's a challenge. How do I keep my dog safe and keep him engaged and still learning foundation without the impact, right? And I can have that as a fun challenge because I know my first dogs I did too much stuff too young, and I know that they retired earlier because there was a lot of impact on them, right? And so that's part of my game now as a more experienced handler. I'm not so worried about where I'm getting. I'm trying to prolong and get as much as I can. And that's a whole just a different game, right? So the whole point of that is just to get to that this is the game. What you're doing right now with your dogs, whatever training process you're doing, is the best part. Whatever we're doing right now is the whole point, and it's the best part. And there's nowhere else to get. Anywhere else you go is just another iteration of what we have right now. So I've really appreciated kind of having that more of that mindset with my dogs lately. Is enjoying the training process and the struggles a bit more because that's the whole point. Like once it's all worked out, then what do you do?
Yeah.
You get
Well, that's
bored.
what
It's like
that's
everything's
what's
easy, right?
that's what's so cool about freestyle, I think, is that when you do it again, each journey could be different. Each
Yep.
journey is going to be different because it's with a different dog, but each journey can be different because you can come up with different stuff. You don't have to do the same stuff all the time. It is called freestyle. So if we can leave you with remembering that, like, make it your own, find your points for you and your dog. And just like Dre's saying, like just this whole journey, this is what it's all about, right? The competitions are part of that journey, but they're not the be all end all of it.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right. Well, I think we've gone on for a while here,
I think
so
we're
we're
good.
I did have a far out facts. Um, it's on uh, it's on scoring, ice skating.
I don't think so, Jack.
All right. Well, I can just edit this part out.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool, like how they score ice skating, which I never realized was like it's
Does
a
it really? Where?
what? Oh, I didn't put it in the notes.
Oh.
I just had looked it up. It's all right. Let's just close up. Let's just close up. You
Yeah, I
ready?
like that part. I thought you were just being sassy because there was different ones on there. Do you want to use it?
Oh, no, I can tell you what it is. So
Yeah.
like I
Tell us what they are.
so what's interesting is we kind of based Updog's freestyle scoring on gymnastics and figure skating. And I remember thinking about that a long time ago, but I went back and I was like, well, what did we see in figure skating that we incorporated? So they have a technical element score, and then they also have something called the program component score. And what I thought was interesting is the program component score, which is kind of like our performance round, has 5 components: skating skills, transitions, performance, composition, and interpretation of music, which I thought was kind of cool. Like that they like have those different things. Like their performance isn't only about the performance. Just like our performance round, you can't just go out there with a costume and win the whole thing. Like it incorporates all of those pieces together. But
Yeah,
anyways, I just thought it was kind of a cool connection, the ice skating stuff.
that is a cool connection. What was the last thing that you said?
Interpretation of music.
Interpretation. Okay, so I submit as a official idea for us to have that in our performance round.
Well, we kind of do.
Well, I mean, but as like we can add that into the notes in there as because people are going to look at like we just said in this topic, like look at those things as ideas. I think we discuss interpretation of music all the time as like when people do that, it's a huge bonus, but we don't write it down. We could write that down in our performance sheet as like one of the really important things is interpretation of your music.
Well, there also is no performance sheet currently. So that's part of the reason why it's not written down.
Oh, well, we have a performance sheet, but it hasn't gone public yet.
Right,
It's going to be used at the freestyle showcase. So
right.
there's a sheet. And on that sheet, now that especially because it's not public, we could put that on there and nobody would even know. All right, Jack, can you put that on the performance sheet, please? That nobody knows about yet? It's a
Yes,
performance
yes,
sheet.
I can. Interpretation of music.
Interpretation of music.
By the way, Dre just mentioned the Freestyle Invitational.
Yeah.
Hopefully, by the time that this airs, we'll know about the Freestyle Invitational.
So
for
nice.
sure.
It's gonna be
But
so great.
if we don't, it's freaking gonna be in November.
It's gonna be in November.
And it's probably going to be the first or second week of November. That's what we're going for. We just can't seem to coordinate with all the moving parts to get it nailed down. But we really want folks to know, like, as much as possible when it's going to be, so you can kind of set those 2 dates aside.
Yeah, first 2 weekends of November,
Yeah.
most likely.
Yeah.
Don't make
All right.
plans. Plan to freestyle.
So, in the meantime, everybody, we hope to see you out on an Updog field soon, and
Be kind to each other.
be kind to your dogs. We will see you later. Ta-da! Look at me.
Oh,